So I finally decided that it was time to put up the money and play the remake of one of the most acclaimed horror video games of all time, Silent Hill 2. Having played the original multiple times, granted in a port that seemed to have a less than positive reception, but still, I was very much interested to see how Bloober team was going to handle this iconic title, and if they were the right studio for the job. Turns out, absolutely they were.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday.
To begin with the story, we play as a man named James Sunderland, who's a bit of a sad sack. He's gotten a letter from his thought-to-be-deceased wife Mary, who says that she's in the town of Silent Hill in their special place. James isn't quite sure where that is, nor is he sure how she's still alive, but he's decided to make a trip to this fog-laden haven to see if the letter rings true. However, when he gets there, he finds that this is no longer the idealistic lake town where he honeymooned those long years ago. Instead, it's now a monster-infested hellhole with disturbing puzzles, horrifying scenery, and a woman who looks an awful lot like his late wife. All that not to even mention the strange gentleman sporting some of the most uncomfortable headgear you can dream of. If you've played the original game, then this is exactly what you expected. Silent Hill 2 is well renowned for having one of the most powerful stories that the medium has ever told, and they knew better than to toy around with it too much. With the narrative, they stuck almost one for one in terms of the when or why, with only occasional tweaks and expansions on the how. For example, the scene of Eddie and Laura in the bowling alley is now a scene of Eddie and Laura in a movie theater. The concept is the same. We get some expanded character moments, some dialogue, but it never takes a step too far into adjusting these iconic characters. More so, it just fleshes them out and makes concepts that were perhaps a bit more subtle in the original more in your face.
What about that?
Will you hold it for me?
Sure, no problem.
If I kept it, I'm not sure what I might do.
In my opinion, the story is fantastic. They took what made the original game great, dialed it up ever so slightly, and then let the source material speak for itself, which is exactly what they should have done. The biggest change to the story probably being Maria, who gets quite a bit more dialogue than I remember, and it makes her eventual fate ever more engaging. This is a tale of guilt, depression, and repentance, with excellent voice acting and exceptional visuals. All that not to even mention the impeccable sound design that brings it all together. So many small things that show you that the team really wanted to do justice to this classic, and I really can't even pick a fault with it. Little tweaks like Eddie's breath being visible when he speaks, or the small little disembodied whispers of an unknown woman. As someone who played and loved the original, all they had to do was not completely botch it, and they didn't. Still dark, still gripping, and still very mature. I can't recommend this story enough to new players or old players, but as for the gameplay, well, it's also pretty good. This game plays a lot like the Alone in the Dark remake, if you've played that, or similar to older games like Downpour, meshed with more modern over-the-shoulder shooters. You have a melee weapon, a non-breakable melee weapon might I add, and you have firearms. You can smack enemies around with your melee weapon, or you can put them down with your boomstick if you've got enough ammo for it, and let me tell ya, you're probably gonna have enough ammo for it. Be it good or bad, depending on your preference, this is not a survival horror game. If you're explorative and conservative, then you're going to have an absolute bucket of bullets, because they don't cap you. To give you an example, I went into the final boss fight with well over 100 handgun bullets, 40 shotgun shells, 50 rifle rounds, 34 health drinks, and 12 syringes. That's a lot. I don't know if they're expecting you to not look in every drawer, but I did. In my opinion, this game is a bit too easy. I played it on standard for both combat and puzzles, and I didn't die a single time. And I am by no means the pinnacle player around here. Personally, I'm not sure if a lack of death is a good or a bad thing. I've certainly played a lot of games where I've died to the point that the fear of death loses all meaning. Silent Hill 2 did the opposite of that, where I didn't want to die to see if I could do the whole thing in one life. Did that make the game more horrifying? I don't know. But I do know that this game is freaking scary regardless. In terms of atmosphere, they hit an absolute home run. I couldn't stop smiling on the long path into town. Creeks in the forest, the rustling of leaves, the impeccable visuals, it's all just so good. To me, they nailed the creeping dread of this town in everything from the buildings to the monster designs. In my opinion, while the original game's monsters were iconic in what they represented, I don't remember them playing all that different aside from attack patterns. Here though, they've not only expanded those move pools, but they've given each of these main enemy types a different gimmick. For example, the Armless Man of course has his signature acid spray, but he's also much more prone to creepily crawl on the ground now. The Nurse has much more health than the others and moves with stiff motion as she swings at you viciously. Then my favorite change would have to be for the mannequins. Their gimmick is now that they will hide and wait for you to walk past so that they can pounce. Then, of course, you've also got the boss fights, which have been expanded in their own ways, with many of them now being several phased gauntlets. Abstract Daddy seeing way more expansion, which is something that can be said for most of this game. They puffed this piece up. While the original sat at around an 8-hour runtime, the remake sits around 16. This means that you'll spend more time in the town of Silent Hill, both in the real world and more prominently in Otherworld. Now, I don't 100% remember how much time was spent in Otherworld in the original game, but I'm almost positive that it wasn't this much. You'll go through a location like Brookhaven Hospital, and then you'll go back through it again, but now warped through the dark visuals that are so heavily associated with the series. Not only that, but other locations that were just stepping stones on your journey have also seen full-blown overhauls and expansions. For example, I remember the Labyrinth being a quick little excursion on your way to Toluca Lake. Now it's a multi-phase descent into all manner of horrific nightmares. If you're an Uber fan who loves the original game and just never wants the journey to end, then you're gonna be in absolute heaven. But if you're a passive fan, I think that you could have some issues with pacing. They've bumped up the length of the locations, but they've not really added any more cutscenes or lore tethered to the characters that we're actually meeting. For me, who's obviously a pretty big lore guy, I want a healthy exploration to story ratio in a game like this, and I feel like Silent Hill 2 weighs more heavily on the exploration. Again, the locations themselves are exquisitely crafted, but sometimes you just want a break from all the monster slaughtering so that you can connect with your mentally disturbed peers.
At least you got your appetite back.
So yeah, to recap, this game is excellent. I can't recommend it enough if you're a fan of the original, and if you're not, I'd still recommend it as a chance to get into a series that's been raved about since the days of the PS1. For me personally, I'd probably give it something like an A-. I love it, but I do think the locations can drag on a bit too much, which is my only real gripe. And if you're wondering, with the puzzles, like I said, I played it on standard, and I didn't personally have any real issues with them. I did look up one because it just wasn't clicking for me, and that was the moth puzzle sorta near the beginning of the game, but I managed to piece all the others together by myself. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the game. I do plan on making some lore videos for it, so if that sounds interesting to you, then stick around, but regardless, I'd like to thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all in the next one.